Hi, and welcome to another edition of Growing Pains, where we talk to entrepreneurs and CTOs about the challenges of growing a business. And I'm today with John St. Pierre, who is an accomplished entrepreneur. He's built four companies, all under a holdco called Rhombus, and has shared a lot of his wisdom and shares his wisdom on a podcast. And so we're lucky to have him sharing his wisdom on this podcast. He's also the author of a book that released recently called The $100 Million Journey, which I'm sure describes one of those four companies. So, John, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Sean. You forgot to mention that I'm also a fellow Canadian too.
That's right, a fellow Quebec Canadian, an expat, went down to Maine. Did you play hockey down there
I did. Yeah.
on a scholarship?
No, I was a walk-on in
Okay.
Maine and ended up transferring to University of Southern Maine to finish up. But yeah, came down to the US to play
Okay.
hockey.
All right. And so I guess you're cheering for Boston now.
Oh no, I can't do that. Yeah, well, you
Good.
know what? Now that Toronto's out, I'm starting going west, right? I'm Vancouver, Edmonton now, so
Yeah,
you have to
yeah.
stick with the Canadian
That'll be a
teams,
good
but you
series.
can't go south.
Yeah,
No.
yeah. All right, enough of the Canadian talk, but it is always good to have a Canadian on the show. So, John, what I want to extract from you on this podcast is some of the, there's everyone talks about their successes, but the real learnings come from where things went south. And
Yeah,
it looks like you started your first business kind of out of the painting business, right? You came out of College Pro.
that's
Were
right.
you was that what gave you the drive to become an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I mean, there were certainly some things earlier in my teenage years that gave me a little bit of the bite, but I was forced to actually run a college pro business in a way,
Oh,
Sean,
okay.
because I was a Canadian student in the US going
Yeah,
to college,
yeah,
but I didn't have a work
yeah.
visa. I had a student visa. So in the
Okay,
summertime, if I wanted to actually work, I had to go back home to work. And so the first year I went
right.
home, and guess what I did? I went to Northern Ontario and planted trees with my buddy from Queens,
Ah, okay.
and that was an adventure.
Yeah.
6 hours north of civilization, planting trees, and at the end of that summer, I was like, I'm never doing that again. I got
Eaten
to find
alive by
some.
bugs.
Yeah. Oh, I
Yeah,
had the whole net right over yourself the whole time. It was quite
yeah,
the adventure. But the following year, I was like, you know what? No. I want to try and figure out a way to stay in the US and get a summer job down here. But I couldn't
right,
work. I couldn't get a W-2. I couldn't be on payroll with a company. But a foreigner can actually own their own limited liability company in the United States.
right.
And so I see this poster in my dorm room, own your own business. And I'm like, what is this? And next thing you know, I'm a college pro painting franchisee running a painting business. I had no clue how to paint. I had to learn the entire process from A to Z. And it really, that first year was really, really difficult. But once you
Mm,
persevere through it, it gives you the bug. If I can do this, I can do anything.
that's excellent. That's excellent. I'm actually reading a book called 10X
Yeah.
Vision or Vivid Vision about 10X in
Cameron
companies.
Harold.
Exactly. He was I guess the lead franchisor for North America for College Pro.
Yeah, so Cameron Harold was a franchisee, was also a general manager, and then he went with another gentleman to start 1-800 Got Junk, and was the
Got junk. Yeah,
COO of
he turned
1-800
that
Got
one around.
Junk. And so him and I
Yeah,
share a common link. He actually was one of the individuals who wrote a review on my book, The $100 Million Journey, as well.
well, that's a big endorsement because it's a great book. It's a
Yeah,
great book.
yeah, he's great
Yeah.
author.
Okay. So from College Pro, that gave you also some sense of how things work in construction and the like. Is that what started your contracting company?
Yeah, well, not quite. So
Okay.
as a franchisee in school, as a college pro painting franchisee, learned a lot, had a lot of tough lessons and growing pains, big growing pains, trying to figure out what this thing called business really is as a college student,
Yeah.
figuring out how to hire people, retain your painters, cash flow
Retain.
management, all those kinds of hard lessons. And
Yeah.
after 2 years of doing that, I was ready to graduate with a degree in accounting. And again, I had this work visa issue. Who am I going to work for in the United States? Someone has to sponsor me. And the
Right.
parent company of College Pro said, well, you're uniquely qualified to be a College Pro general manager now. So we're going to hire you and sponsor your visa. I was like, okay, I'm in.
Okay.
So I moved to Chicago as a general manager. And my job was to go around college campuses, hire college kids, and teach them how to run a business. So I had 20 some
Okay.
franchisees that then now work for me, and I'm teaching them how to run this business. Did that for 2 years. And this was around the late 90s, Sean. And I'm sure you know exactly what's going on in the late 90s. It's kind of like what do we need to do to jump on a .com wagon somewhere? That's kind of
Exactly.
what was
Yeah,
going
yeah,
on
yeah.
at that time. And another general manager from College Pro, his name was Eric Debley from the West Coast, started a company called handymanonline.com. And so this is interesting. What do we do there? And the idea was you need your
Yeah,
home
that's kind of
painted.
redundant, the online.com.
Exactly. You need your home painted, you need your kitchen done, your roof done. You go to handymanonline.com and we'll send you pre-screen contractors. So inevitably, I left College Pro and joined Eric on this venture. And a couple of years after kind of getting that going, we got VC funded out of Silicon Valley, $25 million
Wow.
of VC funding. And we were cooking with gas. I was the VP of sales. I was going around the country opening up offices where we would
Mm,
actually interview contractors and pre-screen them and qualify them to sell them these lead packages. And we would open
wow.
up that market and start marketing in their area and things like that. And then bang, the crash happened.
For
And we
sure.
were supposed to get another round of 50 million to keep our growth going. That never came. The assets of that business sold to another company called Service Magic.
Okay.
Everything fell apart, right? That company, Service Magic, was rebranded HomeAdvisor.com, and HomeAdvisor.com just recently merged with Angie. Angie's List, which is a
Oh,
big.
okay.
So that was handymanonline.com 20 some years ago.
Wow. Wow. Too bad you couldn't keep your stock options.
Oh my
I
gosh.
guess.
Tell me. So,
So
so,
actually, let's unpack that experience a little bit, because that's
yeah,
interesting. You had built basically a brokerage business to help individuals find and secure well vetted contracting companies to build whatever. Was it residential or only commercial?
residential.
Okay. And I guess there would have been issues with even the execution of that, because you can vet a company and then they can bait and switch their contracting. And were there any issues like that?
Yeah. So, what we would do, Sean, is if you were a homeowner, we would
Hmm.
send you 3 pre-screening contractors that had
Hmm.
insurance, were
Yeah.
registered contractors, and had references. From there,
Okay.
you get 3 estimates, and
You
you pick who
choose.
you're going to work with. So we kind of
Okay.
passed off that liability. Say, look, no, our job is to send you people who are going to show up to
Yeah.
give you estimates. And so we kind of resolved ourselves to that.
That's very much what I do in Outforce, is we let the vendors present what they can do.
Yeah.
We vet them, we filter it out, and then bring them to the top 10. And then they can select from the top 10 who they want to interview. And we coach them through interview process to make sure they are asking the right questions and looking for the key cues. And in fact, well, what's interesting is we vet them from the bottom up. In software, the biggest problem is you end up meeting the leadership of the company,
Mm,
who take those calls all day long,
that's
and they
right.
know exactly what to say to sound great.
Yeah. Good
And then they
salespeople.
might even bring in a few, hey, these are a couple examples of our lead engineers. And you go, oh man, I can hardly wait. And then you get the contract and they find whoever they can find off the street. So it's very similar, but it is ultimately the client's choice. And then we help manage through the process.
Love
So
that.
with that though, that's a pretty good business with not a lot of capital. Um, what made it go south with even funding?
Yeah. So, well, when you say that, right, it's like, well, that seems like a pretty interesting online business. Like, what do you need offices for? Right. Well,
Yeah,
in
yeah, yeah,
our
yeah.
mind, we were going to be this hybrid brick and mortar meets online business because we wanted to have a presence in the communities and metropolitans we were in. So we could go
Okay.
to the trade shows, meet with contractors, do all that. So we opened up, I think we had 30 some offices across the country because my job was to go open up
Wow.
these offices and hire the teams and train
Wow.
them and build them.
Yeah, yeah.
And so we had all this infrastructure, right? So when everything came crashing down, the first thing they did was, okay, John, you're out, and all these offices are
Yeah.
gone. We're shutting
Right.
everything down. Why do we open up these offices in the first place? That was silly. We
Right.
don't need to be
Yeah.
have a physical presence in these areas, right? Which
Gotcha.
now
Gotcha.
seems very simple. Why do you need an online
Yeah.
presence in all these markets? But back then we weren't sure yet, right? It was kind of the beginning of this online place, and we thought that having a presence there meant a lot.
Right. No, that makes sense though. In those times, especially,
That's right.
even then, you may use Expedia, but you go to a travel agency on the street
That's right.
when they existed.
Different times.
Yeah. So you sort of dust yourself off from that,
Yeah.
and then what?
Yeah, you talk about growing pains. I can remember driving back from Beaverton, Oregon to Chicago because I had a home in Chicago, and moved out of my apartment in Beaverton, and I was listening to Tony Robbins' personal power tapes, right? Trying to motivate
Okay,
myself
yeah,
back
yeah,
up again. Like,
good.
Sean, I was 24, right? I had lots of runway
Yeah,
ahead of me, but at 24, I thought I had this whole thing called business figured out. I was like, oh, this is simple, right?
right.
Get some VC
Yep.
funding, build this business, and you got options and you're good to go. It didn't turn out that way. But on the ride back to Chicago, I got a call from Charlie Chase. He was the co-founder of CertaPro Painters, a large franchise
Okay.
company in North America. He was also one of the gentlemen who brought College Pro to the United States.
Okay.
And he was looking for someone to help him salvage this e-commerce investment that he had made in Philadelphia. So I moved out there and helped him kind of get that settled. But in a short period of time, we exited that business, and I was looking for something else to do. And I was like, okay, what do I know? I know contracting at this point.
Wait a minute. So you turned his business around,
We
the Certa
salvaged it.
online
We,
version?
I'd
Okay.
say, I'd
Okay.
say we salvaged it. That business, Sean, was where City Search, if you remember that company, meets
Yeah.
Groupon, meets
Yeah.
small business websites for like little couponing within communities. And so we
Yeah. Yeah.
salvaged
Yeah.
what we had there, but we exited pretty
Okay.
quickly. It wasn't a big exit by any stretch of the imagination, but try and help him salvage what he had. But at that point, I was looking at what else am I going to do now? I know I want to be
Right.
an entrepreneur. What's my background? I know contracting, and I know how to scale businesses at this particular juncture. And found an opportunity. It was again early 2000s where Fujifilm was starting to make digital cameras. No more film
Hmm.
cameras; they're starting to make digital cameras.
Right.
And so what they were doing in these Walmarts and Sam's Clubs and all the pharmacies is they were installing these kiosks where you could take the card out of your camera, put it in the kiosk, and order your prints to get printed on site. Well, they were
Right.
installing 3,000 of these across the country. And I was asked, is that something that you could do? And I'm like, absolutely, I could do that. So we formed a company called Rhombus Group, and my partner got the contract secured. And my job was to hire contractors at a distance across the country to go install these kiosks. So I got the spreadsheet of 3,000 sites, and I started calling all these data cabling technicians across the country to go
Yeah.
install these kiosks. And that became the foundation of what today that company is called Brand Point Services. We're north of $100 million contracting business in the United States, Canada.
Congratulations. Well, and that's I guess that's one of the key lessons you stacked instead of looking at the failures, you stacked what you learned and leveraged it to become a hundred million
Yeah,
dollar
well,
company.
Sean, there's a lot more story in all of that, right? That was 2003. There's a lot of failures between 2003 and 2024, for sure. I had other businesses that I was involved in. One business was in the sports industry.
Hmm.
I was very passionate about hockey and sports, and grew a business. Started around the same time, 2003. We grew that business to north of 50 million in global revenues in the sports industry.
Nice.
And 5.5 years ago from today, I was running that business. That was my full-time role. And I got fired from the very company that I built after 15 years of building it
You're
in
kidding.
pretty dramatic fashion. So
Okay.
that one stung. And a
Yeah.
tremendous amount of learning lessons came in that. So along that journey, there's always been all these different lessons that you keep learning as an entrepreneur, growing pains, as you would call them.
Okay. Well, and I know that there's probably some things you cannot say about that specific part of the journey, the travel company.
Yeah.
But if you started the company,
Yeah.
did you raise money for it and then lose the equity portion that you couldn't have control over who was running the company? Or tell me a bit about how that happened and what you would do differently and what lessons you learned from that.
Yeah, well, that's certainly the basis of the book, The $100 Million Journey, where I go through 7 principles of entrepreneurial success that I failed at all seven in that
Okay.
venture. But the first principle in that book, Sean, is protect your equity, protect and
Okay.
grow your equity. And yeah, in that particular business, it started off as a hobby business. So
Hmm.
right off the bat, myself and two of my best friends, say, hey, let's start this business. Okay, we're a third. Perfect, perfect. That sounds great. And we were very
Yeah.
successful. We grew the business to north of $10 million. We're having the time of our lives. We were traveling the world. working with elite athletes and coaches. It was just a dream come true. And then, one day I said, look, I think we can take this business further. And we brought on an investor who invested in the business. So we
Okay.
all get diluted from our 33 down, right? A new
Private
investor,
equity or venture?
I'd say angel
Okay.
investor at that point. And so we brought on that partner to bring on some more capital for growth and some more infrastructure, and equity
Mm-hmm.
gets diluted. And then a
Mm-hmm.
couple of years after that, I was like, you know what? I see how we can grow this business. I think I can 10x this business in the next 5 years. I
Mm-hmm.
see a roadmap on how to aggregate this industry, this fragmented youth sports industry, through some roll-ups. Let's go for it. But in order to do that, we probably need to raise a little more capital. So
Right.
we raised some additional capital. That dilutes us some more. We grow to $50+ million, growing really, really fast, a little bit over our skis,
Mm-hmm.
I should say, in terms of
Mm-hmm.
growth and
And
trying to
time frame around, like what's in valuations? Time makes a big difference, right? Timing, especially.
Yeah. So in 2014, we were 10 million.
Okay.
By 2017, we were 50. So very,
Wow.
very rapid
Wow.
growth.
Nice. Okay.
But as you go through that growth and you're making, we made around 14 acquisitions,
Okay.
your balance sheet starts getting a little heavy,
Yep.
with bank debt. You're raising some capital that's diluting your equity. But I
Mm-hmm.
still had this goal of getting it to 100 million. And
Right.
so I brought it to my partner and said, look, let's do another round of 20 million. I think I can get this thing to 100 million next couple of years and hit our target. So
Mm-hmm.
we sought out some private equity funding. We did receive $20 million of venture funding. Equity comes down now even further. And
Yeah.
6 months after bringing on that equity, I was fired. And at the time of my firing, owned 8% of the business and had
Wow.
completely lost a little bit of control of the ship, if you will, and went off the cliff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And boy, was that hard. That was tough.
No kidding.
15 years
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah. Because you've got so much heart and soul into the business.
Yeah, it was my end. It was
And
my identity. It was
everyone on
my
the board
everything.
must have agreed with your drive to get to 100 million. Was it regardless of what the bottom line was in that drive?
No, not necessarily. We
Okay.
were certainly, attempting to be profitable along that journey. Profit wasn't
Okay.
everything, but it was a
Yeah.
big piece of it. I think cash flow was a
Which is
big problem.
unusual in most companies growing that fast, by the way.
Yeah, it is unusual, but we were in a traditional business where, part of the issue, Sean, is we were generating really good profits in some segments of our business, and we were taking those
Hmm.
profits and cash, and we were deploying them, trying to go a little too wide, a little too fast. And
Okay.
these other
Yeah.
verticals were losing a lot of money, and so you had to kind of
Okay.
counterbalance of different things
Right.
going on there. But yeah, it was a one of the best cultures I've ever been a part. A lot of best friends worked in that business. It was my
Hmm.
identity. It was everything.
Mm.
But when the private equity group joined the company, um, anything that they could find that wasn't working right, they would find right.
Sure.
And lost confidence in me as the person who could take the business to the next level for a variety of reasons that they felt were necessary. Which led me to being terminated from the very company I poured 15 years into. And
Wow.
meanwhile, just to connect the stories, as I'm getting terminated from that business, I look over to my left and I still have this contracting business that I'd started, you know, 15, 16, 17 years prior, just sitting over
Yeah.
there, kind of, growing slowly, taking kind of that slow approach to business growth, but
Yeah.
incredibly stable nonetheless. So it's just kind of these
Hmm.
two tales of two companies,
Two dynamics.
uh,
Yeah.
which was very interesting.
That's very interesting. So, and you said you started the company with your two other friends at
Yep.
30% each.
Yep.
What happened to them?
So one left shortly after I did,
Okay.
on alignment issues with where everything was going. One stayed
Yeah.
with them till the end, and when I say the end, a couple years, 2.5 years after my departure, COVID happened,
Of
and
course.
that threw the company into a tizzy. And they decided to stop funding the business, not knowing how long this was going to go on, and the company went into receivership 2.5 years later, and the whole thing went up in
Wow.
smoke.
Wow.
Yeah.
So there was a disalignment between the culture of the private equity firm and you guys who had built this business to be a high growth, high performance company. which would have created another valuation of inequity. Let's forget COVID was going to happen. Nobody could
Yeah.
forecast that, but would have created a completely different valuation on the company for everybody involved. And so in the process of selecting the private equity firm, how many buyers did you look at? Did you have a process for that sale, for that interest in selling that part of the company? Was there a lot of competition, or was it, hey, these guys were really interested? They became knocking on your door and you said yes.
Yeah, it gets a little more complicated as I get into that part, Sean. But what ended up
Okay.
happening was prior to making that move to raise that capital, I hired an individual to assist me with that capital raise and,
Okay.
kind of help me with the strategy of where we were going with that business. And
Mm-hmm.
that individual and I started working, putting our book together and meeting with different firms. And we met with, I'll say 15 to 20 groups that were interested in our space and went
Mm-hmm.
through everything. And ultimately, the group we ended up going with was a group that individual had a prior relationship with. And
Okay.
you could probably see where that's going from here.
Yeah.
Post 6 months post, they removed me and put him in the role of the CEO. And
Okay. Okay.
um,
Yeah.
and I would say it politically correct from the perspective they had more confidence in him than they did in me. Why that happened, there's
Yeah.
maybe a lot between the lines there, but at the end of
Mm-hmm.
the day, I put myself in that position. I put myself in that vulnerable spot, not growing and generating enough cash flow, making
Mm-hmm.
some shiny object chasing decisions that probably shouldn't have made in retrospect, right? All the principles that I talk about now, from an introspective way, how did I let that happen to me in the
Mm-hmm.
first place, right? Was
Right.
very deep growing pains there for sure.
Yeah. But I mean, I got to give it context because that was the period of grow at any cost that even carried right into 2020, 21.
Yeah.
So I don't blame you for that. That's where all the money was telling you to do, right? There was cheap capital available. So grow at any cost, get market share. It's the power curve, and you got to be on the front of it.
Yeah.
So I mean, kudos to you for doing it, and for being vulnerable enough and humble enough to say, hey, I put us in a position. But I've seen that a lot. People grow a company, they don't have an exit strategy really mapped out, or a funding strategy that's fully mapped out, and then they get a partner in who crushes the business based on total mismatch of culture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's critical, right? How you grow a business, and what you're talking about now, I talk about a lot, which is, what is your long-term capital strategy? Where are you raising
Mm-hmm.
capital? What are you exactly going to do with it? How are you going to generate more
Mm-hmm.
net operating cash flow to fuel your own growth through
Mm-hmm.
these investments? And to your point, today we don't live in a time where you can just depend on capital coming into your business cheaply, right? So you have to generate your own
Right.
capital. You have to build your own capital, which
Yes.
is principle 2 in my book. You have to build your own capital for growth. How are you going to do that? Because the more capital you can generate through your business, the less equity you'll have to give away, or the less your balance sheet will be leveraged down the road, which helps you be more stable. So I think those are very fundamental elements that a lot of businesses need to apply.
It makes sense, but so many people forget about it. Yeah.
It does. And
Yeah.
sometimes, Sean, we glamorize how much capital we raise, right? I can
Oh yeah.
distinctly remember, yeah, we just raised $20 million and bragging about it, right?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, my
Yeah.
equity was going the other way and I was about to get canned. So now, when you think about it, if you can raise your own capital and reinvest that capital into your own growth and do it on a really well laid out capital strategy, that's also a really good way of doing things.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, there's that famous scene. I don't know if you watched the Silicon Valley series on HBO. It was hilarious. And there's one scene where a guy who raised $1 billion sits down and at a bar, he's drinking because he has no money left. He totally got kicked out of the company, and he's lamenting the decisions that he made in order to raise that capital and ride that wave,
Yeah.
as opposed to the one that's the fundamentals of business, right?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting there too, Sean, and this kind of goes to learnings, right? Just life learnings.
Mm,
Is,
mm,
what was I trying to do? Like, what was I trying to accomplish by growing a company to 100 million was my goal. But as I was going there, my equity was going the other way. And so,
Mm-hmm.
in hindsight, I was growing for growth's sake. I was growing because it was I thought as an entrepreneur, that's what you do. You just grow. You just
Yeah.
build. It really wasn't connected to what I wanted to achieve in life.
Mm.
I'd rather be 100% owner of a $10 million business than a 10% of a $100 million business, a lot less risk and stress.
Okay.
But you have
Yeah.
to align kind of what you're trying to do in your life, right, as an individual with the business, and make sure those two are really well connected. Otherwise, you'll kind of business can take you one road, and any path will do if you don't really know where you're going.
Yeah. You'll totally lose your soul and then you lose everything. So yeah, no,
Exactly.
I totally agree. And I still say, at the time it was, yeah, but you'll have 10% of $1 billion company. So guess what? You'll land at 100 million.
100%. That was exactly the way I was viewing it. Didn't work out that
Yeah.
way, but that's the way I was
Yeah.
dreaming it.
Yeah. Interesting. And so, what would so you've mentioned three of the lessons. Any more you want to share with us that were fundamental in your journey?
Yeah, well, I'll share the seven with you real quick, and you tell
Okay.
me if you want to dive into anyone specifically. But the first
Okay.
one I shared was protect and grow your equity.
Yeah.
Principle two is build your own capital for growth. You
Hmm.
self finance your own growth. Principle three is reinvest smartly. Don't chase
Hmm.
shiny objects. Reinvest where you can generate more net operating cash flow and capital, so you can further protect and grow your equity. Right.
Yeah.
Principle four is build a culture of entrepreneurship. Build a team within your team that can run your business someday, and provide them
Hmm.
those leadership abilities to grow. Principle five is protect the house. You built all this business. Are you protecting it? Are you doing vulnerability assessments? Are you ensuring that you're well supported with protectors that are looking at every angle of your business to eliminate the vulnerabilities that exist as you grow a large business?
Okay. Okay.
Principle six is how do you access your liquidity as an owner? A lot of times your liquidity is tied up in working capital. It's tied up in the balance
Yeah.
sheet. Like, when do you ever
Yeah.
get paid? And the typical answer
Right.
is when I sell, or when I sell equity.
Right.
And that's no fun. You're supposed to protect your
Hmm.
equity. Principle one.
Right.
So how do you move your equity or some of the wealth that's on your business's balance sheet to your personal balance sheet in tax efficient manners? Well, until you grow a business that's sizable enough, it doesn't really matter. But once you do,
Right.
it's still very hard to gain access to that capital. So how do you do that in tax efficient manners? I started learning all these different tools that were out there to do so, and they were eye opening. And then principle
Yeah.
seven, which is the most fun of all, is how do you move from CEO to chairperson? How,
Right.
everybody always, all these consultants coach, I do it too. Right. It's like, hey, you got to work on your business, not in your business. And it's like, yeah, it's easier
Right.
said than done, pal. Like
Yeah.
I'm shoveling crap over here.
Exactly.
Right. So when do you do that? Well, if you do principles 1 through 6, you can move to the level where you're more strategic and you're now the chairperson of your business. And at that point, you start, getting a little taste of what this thing called entrepreneurship is supposed to be: freedom, the ability to, provide time in other areas of interest that you may have. You become more of a
Right.
business owner than a business operator. So those are the seven principles.
Okay. Well, the tax efficient release of capital is a whole story I'd love to unpack. But I want to go back because a lot of our listeners are early stage founders and they are interested in that equity position. And my advice is, like I said in our pre-call, you know, don't give out all the equity up to the technical founder, a co-founder that doesn't know the business as well as you do.
Yeah.
Build the technology cheap and get your product market fit. Then start to see who you need to hire.
Yep.
But also, a lot of people don't have either the resources to bootstrap and get something going, so they do need to bring capital in. And going back to this whole principle, yeah, a 10% of $1 billion company is not so bad, right? What's the the fine balance between those two agendas, which is, if I don't throw some capital at this, we won't grow and we'll lose market share and there will be a power player and we'll never get the exit that we ever wanted, versus I'm going to hold on to everything and I'm going to grow it organically.
Yeah.
Like, those are two extremes, but in the middle, there's always lots of room. So talk to me a bit about that
Yeah, there's a
and
ton
your
of room. Well,
philosophy
well
around it.
first off, I would agree with you on the comment about the technical founder or any key hire you want to bring into your business. You feel you need. It could be sales, it could be technical, it could be market, whatever the hire may be that you feel you really need to take the next step. One of the biggest mistakes I think entrepreneurs do is they give away their equity too loosely.
Mm-hmm.
They don't actually put the terminal value on such equity. So they'll be, oh, come join my team.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you 10%. they don't really think about the fact that 10% might be worth 100 million someday, right? Was that hire
That's
worth
right.
$100 million, right? And so
Exactly.
one of the things that I work with a lot of entrepreneurs on is this concept of phantom equity. This
Okay.
idea of, as opposed to giving real equity away, provide those people with a real incentive to help grow your business and the value of your business where they can be rewarded, but it's a phantom equity instrument that, acts more like a bonus instrument than it does an equity and tax and voting and all those kinds of things. So, when we talk about equity, Sean, there's a couple components, right? There's a dollar value of your equity. Then
Hmm.
there's the rights that your equity has in terms of decision
Hmm.
making and authority. Those are two different things. I think a lot of
Hmm.
times people believe that, the who owns more than 50% controls the business. That's not necessarily the case. Let me tell you that from the perspective of somebody who got terminated from their own company from a minority shareholder
Right.
from, right? So control doesn't necessarily come with that. So those are two different elements I think that entrepreneurs really need to understand. Protect the
Yeah.
percentage of equity you give from a value of it perspective, and maybe use other instruments like phantom equity. But then you also have to really know what your operating agreements say, and they need to be
Right.
well structured. And you need an attorney that's protecting your interests, not necessarily the company's interests on those operating agreements, especially if you're the founder. So as you
Right.
bring people into the organization, you got to look at that. So that's my first point I'll make on it. The second point I'll
Okay.
make is, yeah,
Before you leave that,
yeah,
so on phantom equity, I get it. It's almost like a tracking of the company enterprise value of the company as if they had stock, and then they get bonused accordingly.
yes.
But on the other side, are you talking about just splitting shareholder rights like non-voting and dragon tags and all that stuff?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
all those instruments are good, and primarily just knowing what you're doing, right? If
Right.
you're giving somebody 10% of your business because you really want them to join your team, does that mean they need to get 10% voting interest in the business? I don't know
Right.
if those two compute to be exactly the same
Yeah.
need, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think there's you just need to know. Unfortunately, there's a lot of entrepreneurs who don't really understand the decision making control mechanisms of their business, and as they raise capital, okay, so as an entrepreneur goes and raises capital, the sophisticated money's coming in with, we've done these operating agreements 100 times. We are 100 times, 1,000 times, 10,000 times. The entrepreneur maybe has never gone through that before, right? And they bring their corporate attorney from down the street to kind of sit down with these large corporate attorneys that do these deals all day long.
Yeah.
The devil's in the details. Like, it's really important to protect yourself in that process. I did a very poor job of that myself. And it's something that entrepreneurs really need to be careful about, is really the letter of the law.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a great book by Brad Feld, who's a pretty famous venture capitalist out of Colorado, and it's all about those terms and conditions in those investment books and how to protect yourself. So it's great advice, John. Thank
What's
you
the name
very
of the
much.
book? Do you remember?
I think it's how to negotiate with a VC. It's almost counterintuitive to being a VC to publish a book like that, but Brad's just a totally generous guy
Yeah.
in that space.
Well, certainly, that's a whole different subject, but as you're looking for partners, right? I would rather have a partner like him who's also saying, look, this needs to be a win-win for everybody. Let's be clear about
Hmm.
what these terms are and how this works, than somebody who's trying to slide one in, right? In the next
Hmm.
paragraph.
Hmm.
So
Hmm. Hmm.
that's a big thing. And the only other comment I'll make, Sean, on the raise capital or not, I just think that with advances in technology, whether it be AI, coding, the ability to outsource like you're doing, all these abilities to scale your business, the cost of storage, everything, you need to be nimble and you need to be wise. And I see
Hmm.
way too many companies that want to build the Taj Mahal before they
Hmm.
go to market.
Right.
And I'm a true believer in, find a product mix and a service you can provide that starts to generate revenue as quickly as possible, and
Hmm.
use that capital to reinvest in your business for growth and further build and keep going and keep going and keep going. And if you do that, you'll end up giving up less equity along the road if you're able to self-finance your own growth. Doesn't matter if you're a traditional mom and pop, business, or you're a SaaS business, you're any type of, app business. Try and find that addressable market you can start generating some revenue streams on, to fuel your growth, as opposed to feeling like you have to build everything with everything working exactly like you envisioned it before you go to market.
Oh, 100%. Because as soon as you go to market, everything you built, the customer's going to say, I like it, but if it had
Yeah,
this,
exactly.
and you need to know the 100 thises that are consistent to build your product market fit,
That's right.
right? Yeah, so that's true, very true. We in technology cycles, we talk about that as the MVP, minimum viable product, on which you iterate until you get product market fit.
Mhm.
And it's a cycle that takes sometimes a couple of years and a lot of input.
Yeah.
And as Canadians, we're the maybe company. We're the maybe country. So you get a lot of maybes before you get yeses. What I love about business in the United States is it's no, I don't like that, and get out of my office. Versus, and yes, I want one of those, but I want it at this price, or it's got to do this before I buy it. And you get the real answer. That's what I love about the States. It's awesome. So one thing you didn't talk about, John, was the advisories and the board composition and things like that as you're building out a company. I mean, did you get involved? We obviously had investors, so you had new people on the board, and what advice would you give to people about that, even if they don't take investment? Because people should have some advisory capacity in the business.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, let me talk on the advisory part first.
Okay.
At the time that I was making decisions to grow our business, to raise
Hmm.
capital, to bring on, these investments and restructure our operating agreements and everything. I remember my best friend, who's the co-host of our Entrepreneurs United podcast you mentioned earlier, Rich Hoffman. Remember during that time, he said to me, he's like, John, your company's growing pretty fast. Who do you have coaching you these days? And I was
Mm.
like, oh no, Rich, I don't have anybody. I have a plan. I'm working it. I don't need anybody. I got this thing. Right. I was making these major one door irreversible decisions with no counsel. I mean, no, when I say no counsel, I don't actually mean attorney counsel. We had an
No,
attorney
no, you
working on it.
mean
I didn't have
advice.
anybody coaching me, I didn't read the how to negotiate with a VC. I didn't have any tool. I was just like, we're raising capital. This is exciting. Like, I'm fine. They're going to protect me. This is my vision. I'm the CEO of this business. They're investing in me. I had all these notions in my head that were so arrogant in retrospect, right? I was like, who do you think you are? And
Yeah.
life has a funny way of knocking you down when you think you got it figured out. And that's what happened. And so today, one of the biggest pieces of advice I give to entrepreneurs that I coach is you have to surround yourself with world-class advisors.
Right.
Today, coach, mentors, peers, world-class attorneys, wealth advisors, CPAs. I don't make any decision in our business as a major decision unless I have everybody around the table unanimously going, yes, that's the right decision. We don't make it.
Mm.
And I didn't
Yeah.
have that before. And you think about these professional athletes that have 6 or 7 coaches. They have a nutrition coach, mindset
Sure.
coach, position coach, this coach
Yeah.
to be the best in the world. Yet us entrepreneurs just try and fly alone. And so today you have to have that board of advisors for yourself, the entrepreneur, let alone the business. And if you surround
Hmm.
yourself with those right people and don't be penny wise, dollar foolish, bring the right world-class people in, things will start paying off for you.
I agree 100%. Yeah. And so then take that to the board level. What do you look
Yeah.
for in board composition?
Yeah. So, as I sit here today, I don't have a company with boards other than,
Okay.
partners in my business. So I don't want to speak too much about my experience because the one time I did
Yeah.
have a board in our company, I got canned.
Wasn't a good one. Yeah.
It didn't work out for me. So I don't think I'm positioned to provide the right level of experience. But I guess the only part I'd go back to is the first point. If you are going to build a board, get your world class team advisors around you to really help
Mm.
make sure whether it be the composition, the structure of the operating agreements, how that board is going to function is well documented, well thought out before you get into one.
Right. 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 That's good. I'm lucky. I've got, I mean, it's a 3-member board, but I've got the curmudgeon on one side, who's a private equity guy.
Yeah.
And I've got the optimist on the other side, who is an operator and chairman and built, a couple $100 million companies.
Yeah.
And so I get the yin and the yang on terms of their advice on what to do.
Yeah.
And
And Sean,
it's
maybe that would be
phenomenal.
the one point I'd say is keep it small.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Keep your
Yeah.
board small.
Yeah. Well, listen, John, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Lots of great nuggets in this, and I hope we can do it again.
Yeah. I appreciate the time, Sean. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thanks, and have a great day. I'll just go there.